how you going? We're diving down the Aussie rabbit hole again and looking at some other random stuff too. So first up, ask an Australian. In the USA, each state has its stereotypes. Very true. Is that the case in Australia as well? What are the major stereotypes about different states in Oz? Western Australia is kind of strange and defo the most likely to secede if they're ever feeling bored. Yeah, you guys have pretty much taught me that early on. I feel like it is an incredible place for scenery and it's so big, right? Now, of course, not living there and not getting into politics and stuff, I don't know that kind of side of things. But yeah, I've heard from you guys that it is kind of different and has their own kind of way of doing things, has their own vibe, and sometimes I feel, or maybe all the time I feel, they don't need the rest of Australia. I mean, looky here. Kinda strange. We surely deserve better than kinda. We are full on strange. Why would you live anywhere else? The wait a while state, kicking back, watching the sunset over the Indian Ocean, drinking WA or Western Australia beer, talking parochial shit about how good we are, but complaining about the same time how isolated we are. You know, that actually kind of sounds like New Mexico. Like the Western U.S. is for sure different than the Eastern U.S., but then each state is crazy too. And New Mexico is literally called the land of manana. So the wait a while state kind of feels similar. Everyone loves, like, it has the best it literally has the best sunsets. Anyone who's been on this channel a long time saw our live streams with the mountains in the background. The sunsets are killer there. And, you know, having a beer out there, lots of breweries there, lots of good times. I feel like Western Australia and some places I've been out west here, similar vibes. I'm sure the rest of Australia, though, does, you know, have some drinks and has a lot of nice beaches. So, I don't know. I'll let you guys sort this out. I will say one thing that would be tough sometimes. I mean, some people probably love the isolation, but yeah, living in Western Australia, if you're, like I said, like outside of Perth or any other moderately sized place, which is probably few and far between, it's probably intense, like how isolated it is. And to think like, oh, you're in the same country as millions of people from Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane and all these things. And they feel like they're probably a world apart. Like Australia's big, right? You can't really feasibly drive from Perth to Sydney. That would be insane unless you're going on like a whole road trip that's going to last months. You would have to fly, right? And that's just crazy. I feel like in my head, you know, Perth to Sydney is even more extreme than going from like Los Angeles to Miami or something, you know, like it just feels bigger in Australia when I look at the map. Actually, we're going to look that up just for fun, but I will say it feels bigger in Australia because I know that Australia in between that say Perth and Sydney would be a lot more empty. We'll say that, but I'm going to look up the mileage just for fun. Perth to Sydney, here's the route you would take: 41 hours or 3,933 kilometers. Now I got to do kilometers to miles. Okay, so that's 2,443 miles, all right? I'm going to keep that open. Now let's look up Los Angeles to Miami. Wow, okay, so Los Angeles to Miami, there's the route, kind of similar, except instead of a hook up, it's be a hook down, you see? Because Florida is way south. People forget that. Florida is way more south than California. It's not even funny. And it's 40 hours versus 41. Super close. I guess I am a geography whiz. Look at that. That's pretty damn good, yeah? 2,700 miles. Perth to Sydney was 2,443. So very similar. But like I said, it would be a very scenic and slightly more populated route in America, even though there'd be a lot of empty spaces. It wouldn't be near what you'd experience in Australia. So kind of cool to see the difference, right? Alrighty, guys, time to settle the score. Everyone loves to complain and overhype the venomous and freaky animals in Australia, right? You guys have heard it way too much. I know. Well, let's settle the score. This is the countries with the most venomous animals. Mexico, right below here, is number one with 80, followed by Brazil in South America with 79, very close behind, and then Australia in third place, a little bit below with 66. There is the whole map. The darker reds towards black are higher number of animals that are venomous, and then lighter pink, green, and gray are either none or very low. So the U.S. is between 30 and 40, which is kind of shocking. That's basically half or less than half of Mexico. Look at India, though, part of the game there. They have a lot. And then, kind of everywhere in Southeast Asia, right on top of Australia, you're still going to find a lot of venomous stuff there. On the flip side, look at most of Europe. Wow. Europe does not have a lot of venomous creatures. Very interesting. Europe is squeaky clean. Same with Canada. Well, I wonder what's up with that. One side note I want to throw in. You see, like I said, all the venomous animals here, tons of venomous animals in Australia, and then look at New Zealand, right? Your friendly neighbor. It is a friendly neighbor. Less than 10 in New Zealand. New Zealand's like hella safe. I, an Aussie, took a hiking trip to New Zealand recently and I got funny looks when I checked every log and rock before sitting down. Nope. Nothing to worry about. As someone living in Europe, this is so surreal to me. I can't imagine checking your shoes every time you put them on or checking things before you sit on them. I've seen pictures with animals in toilets and just the thought of it is frightening. Yeah, that is crazy. You guys are spoiled in Europe when it comes to creepy crawlies, I guess. Wow. This is interesting. This is Australia's latitude in perspective. So we're here in North America. You can see Mexico, of course, the United States, Canada at the top of the screen, and so forth. We have Australia superimposed over the image of North America. And as you can see, first of all, it would be flipped over, and that's because Australia would be in the northern hemisphere, so that makes sense. So obviously, southern Australia be a little more mild and colder, and then, of course, northern Australia would be hot and humid and not really get winters, while now it would be flipped. So basically, Australia is Mexico. That explains your guys' amazing climate that tends to be pretty warm. Granted, you guys have a lot more land mass. That also explains the higher temperatures because you see Mexico is really, really mountainous. It's a lot of high elevation. And that's why the weather's almost perfect there because it's down, south, more towards the equator. And so they don't get that frigid cold, but they don't get that crazy heat like you would get up here in New Mexico, Arizona, California, because, again, those are much lower elevation than the country of Mexico. Mexico also has the ocean on both sides, and it's fairly narrow. You just have a lot of moderating temperatures going on. That's why the climate is the best in the world. So yeah, it makes sense that like Tasmania is up here towards Idaho, Utah area, and then everywhere else is down basically in the tropics down here. So it's kind of interesting. That explains your guys' weather, seeing it from my, I guess, like an American perspective. Look at your whole country is in the southern states where the weather here is good in the south. You guys don't get super freezing sub-zero temps like we do because, look, now in Chicago, we're way up here. And then the northern states get really crazy cold in Canada because they're way up here. So what you're saying is Australians are Mexican. That's what I was saying. G'day, amigo. I like that. Oh, my God. Mixing Spanglish, but Spanglish with Aussie. So, Spazzy. Buenos dias, mate. That's how you got to talk to Pedro. That would be awesome. Ever wondered what each and every road would look like on the map? There you go. Take a look at this. Oh my God. That is still a lot of roads, but I imagine this would look a lot different than here in the U.S. I mean, look at all these gaps. There's still places where there's basically no road. There's a lot of roads. This looks like even in this big bubble around Perth. So probably like a 2-hour bubble in any direction outside of Perth. You're still in somewhat civilization, yeah? Here is a freaking weird map. This is a map of Earth rendered around Australia being the center. So look at Australia in the center. Look at its orientation. Yes, that is Antarctica down here. Very visible, which is weird. You think of it being at the way bottom of the map. That, like, look at how everything's angled. It's very weird to look at, right? It's like hurting because you never see it like this. At least I never see it like this. Here is the Americas way over here. And then here is, well, Europe and oh my God, I'm confused. Here is Europe and then Asia and then Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. Oh my God, this is crazy. This is crazy, guys. You know, one thing I always think is funny is people say Australia is so isolated, and I agree, it is pretty isolated, but you guys are really close still to Asia, right up here, and you can see it in this map with this perspective. I feel like the Americas are isolated. Granted, they're really big, so, we have each other, I guess, over here. But the Americas are pretty isolated, and I feel like the rest of the world is over here. At least that's the way the map makes it look like. This may be the oldest map I've found on here, because I always find old ones. I find them interesting. This is from 1659. Yep, this has got to be the oldest, because look at Australia is Alandia. It's not even there. It's like barely there. No one basically knew anything about it. As a matter of fact, they think it all connected over here. I don't know. This is crazy. Here's an interesting one. Australia's iron ore reserves are estimated at 52 billion tons. That's insane. 30% of the total global reserves. Much of this ore is high-grade direct shipping ore that can be fed directly into blast furnaces. And here is the map in question, Australia's iron ore deposits. The country is the world's largest producer of the material. I'd say so. So the darker tan areas are areas with high concentration of iron ore, and then the red is mineral deposits with 100 million plus tons of iron ore. So, I mean, it's pretty distributed. I mean, even down here in Tasmania, and then much of it in the south here, a little bit up north, tiny bit out east, and Western Australia coming in hot with loads of it. I love it. The first comment, there's a reason our dirt is red. Yeah, that's true. Iron is what gives it that red color. It makes a little more sense now, doesn't it? Ooh, here are the top 10 selling cars in Australia for 2022. Number 1, Toyota Hilux. I guess I'm not surprised by that. You guys talk about the Hilux all the time. I've gotten amazing emails and stuff from you guys with some so sick Hilux builds. I don't blame you guys. It looks like a solid freaking truck with a good reputation. Ford Ranger. So you guys obviously like the utes, the trucks, whatever you want to call them. It makes sense, right? The only difference I would say is smaller trucks like this, mid-sized trucks segment, we would call this here, is definitely more popular in the last few years, and used to be really popular in the 80s and 90s. But still, what they call full-size trucks here, heavy-duty trucks, those are still, I'd say, the most popular here. And then coming up next, we have the RAV4 from Toyota at number 3. Yeah, those are pretty popular here. Mitsubishi Triton, another ute, coming in at number 4. Mazda CX-5. And then rounding out the second half of the top 10, we have the Corolla, the Land Cruiser, the Isuzu D-Max. I've heard a lot about that vehicle. I think it's kind of cool, actually. The MG ZS. I have no freaking idea what that is. I only know old MGs that we have here in the States from like the 70s. They were really little. And then the Hyundai i30. And I don't think we have the i30 here. We probably do have it. It's probably called something else. Interesting comment right up top here. Have you noticed how you hardly ever see the old-style super basic single-cab tradie utes anymore? My theory is that tradies have switched to having a work ute and a family car to having a dual cab that does both jobs. And fair enough, too. That is super accurate, I'm imagining, because it's super accurate here. Everything up until the mid-90s was always single-cab, long-bed trucks here. And then nowadays, everyone and their mother, it seems like, has giant, Chevys, whatever it be, and they're always the crew cab, right? The big four-door trucks, regardless of what bed it has. And that's because, their theory, I want to use it for work, for hauling stuff, and I want to carry my family around. So people are ditching minivans. Minivans have been hostile for almost more than a decade here. And they're even ditching wagons and SUVs, and they're like, I want a full-on truck. And that's the thing here. You just see so many work trucks, even with the logos, the contractors, the whoever, and their big crew cab trucks. It's pretty interesting to see that transition from 20 or 30 years ago. Someone posted this in Cars Australia. What an absolute bargain. A 1987 Ford Telstar Ghia AT. So obviously I'm not sure what this post is about, if they're saying it's a bargain or they might be saying they might be being sarcastic and saying this is totally not a bargain. Okay, yeah, the comments confirmed that this is overpriced. That's what I was leaning towards. I mean, it looks pretty sun-baked, pretty old, and nothing special, to be quite frank. Yeah, people in the comments said this should be about $600 to $1,000, and they want $8,000 for that. Yeah, there are dealers out there like that, isn't there? I guess it's the same way down under, too. They're just some of those shyster dealers where you're like, what are you guys thinking? That is never gonna sell. But here's a sign at a red rooster somewhere in Australia. The whole world is short-staffed. Be kind to those that showed up. That is the crazy reality these days. I don't know what's going on in the world. Yeah, I have seen signs like this at tons of restaurants here in the U.S. as well. It's pretty crazy times. I honestly don't know how some places are even open. Here's a crazy map in not even maps, but Reddit Australia. If we raise the sea level 120 meters, the dark green, we get our own Mediterranean. I vote more climate change. Oh my God. I mean, it's very interesting. I've seen other maps that I guess do kind of portray that there could be a huge body of water right here. I don't know. Kind of interesting. You think that's ever going to happen? Name a more iconic Aussie duo. What is it? Ford Falcon and the Kangaroos. Couldn't have taken a better picture myself. We're going to end it on that note, guys. I love doing random Australian stuff on the internet. As always, I really hope you enjoyed this one, full of maps and wonder and random stuff. Throw a like on there if you did, and of course, subscribe to be part of this amazing community. Let me know your freaking thoughts and 2 cents down below. I'll see you in the next one. Alrighty, my name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker, and until next time, y'all, catch you later.